Good evening, you're watching Social Impact on IDNR TV, and I'm your host, Anita Verma. 'Tis the season to spend, and soon we'll all be seeing our credit card bills go up and our bank accounts shrinking, but what to do if some of those purchases don't look quite so right? The topic of today is consumer fraud, and I have fellow IDNR TV host Kevin Bousquet, who is also a certified fraud examiner from Corpa Investigation, to talk about the matter.
Hi.
Thanks for being on the set.
My pleasure.
Great. Now, before we dive in, give us a quick background on exactly what Corpa does and its history.
Okay. Well, this is my 16th year in business, self-employed. I've been in the industry virtually all my working life. Primarily, we do asset investigations, we do fraud investigations, we do due diligence. A lot of the work that we're doing is primarily for the banks, doing what's called asset investigation profiles on people to help determine, for example, if they're litigation worthy, whether or not they're worth going after, whether or not they have the assets to sue at all, that kind of thing. And a lot of corporate and background, a lot of investigating companies, that kind of thing. A lot of matters that relating to fraud, a lot of debts that have been incurred by fraud.
Okay, so you know what you're talking about.
Sure.
All right, so now tell me, how frequently does this happen?
What, fraud?
Yes, in terms of your cases.
Well, the majority of my cases are fraud related. Okay, if you're asking how often it's happening, I would say it's increasing. I would say that there are more debts that are being incurred by fraud that I'm seeing as to previous years.
Why is that?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the introduction of the internet. Okay, it's a lot more easier to, find people that are going to give up their personal information via the internet. I mean, our credit cards are online now. Our mortgage is online now. We're transacting more on the internet now. We're living in a technological world now where, it's easier to have your information online, that kind of thing. So
are people are more apt to give it up online nowadays?
I would say so, just by way of convenience on the internet, that kind of thing.
Okay, well, holiday season's coming up. People are going to be buying more things. People tend to purchase things over the internet now. So is fraud more prevalent, or internet-based fraud more prevalent at this time of year?
I would say yes. I'm not entirely sure if there's any kind of a pattern. I mean, I'd feel uncomfortable saying that it's increasing. It increases more towards December. I mean, my position is that fraud is the worst that it's ever been in the history of mankind, and it's only going to get worse. It's going to get increasingly worse. So I don't know if I feel comfortable saying that, yeah, okay, it's Christmas season and it's more, than it is, for example, in the spring or the summer. I really think it's a bad problem to begin with, and it's out of control. So. Okay,
you say it's going to get worse. Why is that? Is that scam artists are just getting smarter, or people are just more vulnerable? More
people on the internet. More, all of our banking, as I said before, it's all done online now. There is a lot more scams out there. A lot more internet scams being conducted out there, that kind of stuff.
So are scam artists becoming more sophisticated in what they're doing?
I don't know if it's a matter of becoming more sophisticated. I think that there's more of them in play. I think there's more people that are actually committing fraud. That kind of thing.
Okay, so let's talk about internet fraud. Okay. So what are the biggest type of frauds that happen on the internet?
Well, I guess the most common this time of year, I would say, is people who are buying things online. Okay, and what we're seeing a lot of now is situations what we would call spoofing. Okay, you get a spam email, one of many that everyone gets in their mailbox, and let's say, for example, it's a PayPal. Let's say, for example, you're on eBay and you pay by PayPal. You get this email that says, oh, we've added the following person to your account, or we have the following purchase is a receipt for your purchase on such and such a date. And you click on to there through your email, it takes you to another site that looks exactly like PayPal. And it's not. It's a spoofed site. It's some other site, and they're asking you all sorts of proprietary questions to fix this so-called error. And they're going to be asking your name, your date of birth, the little three number that's on the back of your credit card, that kind of thing. And that data finds its way into all sorts of different crimes that can relate to fraud, whether it be impersonation, credit card fraud, that kind of thing.
We're going to get into those a little bit later as well. Okay. But go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying that, once a lot of times people think that they're out to get, people are out to try and buy things on your PayPal account. What they're really trying to do is get you to answer as many questions as possible so they can impersonate you and defraud you.
Okay, this is also called phishing as well, from what I hear.
Phishing or spoofing, I like to use the word spoofing, and it's not just PayPal. I mean, it is...
all major sites are being replicated.
I mean, I have literally now seeing, like, we're here in Canada, the major banks, I don't want to mention the major banks, but I would say that the major banks now are getting hit. So you might, let's say, for example, you're a customer, CIBC, Royal Bank, TD, you'll get an email and saying, you know, we've had the following error on your credit card, you know, please, you know, could you please click here to rectify these errors? And you think that this is actually a problem, whatever, and again, you go to this spoof site, okay, and, you know, you're giving out this personal data.
Okay, so essentially it's a replicated site that's being sent to your email box. Yeah. But what about the case of if you're typing the website in the address bar, and I've seen things where you'll be typing in, again, a bank's name, .com, but if you type in .net or .org, it'll take you to another spoof site sometimes.
Yes, I agree. I mean, that's another form of spoofing. That's, I don't know if it's as common. I mean, I think primarily, you know, what I see the most of is just a lot of these people and these organizations that are harvesting these email addresses and are spamming you, okay, and they are taking your personal data. And sometimes, you know, some of these people are just brokers. They're just taking your data and they're selling it to the highest bidder on the internet. So they're not necessarily, that person is that particular person out to scam you. Yeah, he's basically taking your data and selling it to other people that want to use it overseas, you know, for example. So. Okay,
so what kind of information are they getting that's so easily accessible on one part, but then so valuable on the other end?
You know, one of the most common things that people need to do on the internet when they're using the internet is stop using the same username and the same password every single time. So let's say you're on association, say for example, like you're on the Association of Journalists, and you go to the journalism website and you log in using your name, your special secret name that you're using, and that password. Well, you got to remember that these websites that you go on, they're private companies. You know, they're not necessarily government-regulated companies. So if you're using that same username and that same password for your bank or for your PayPal, for your email, for anything else, okay, your jugular veins hanging, waiting for the kill. So you need to be careful that you don't use the same password information all the time, because if you don't, even if it's just, for example, going into a chat room, it's a specific chat room and it's some kind of an interest group, don't use the same kind of a password and username that you would use for banking information.
Okay, now I just want to touch back on the email spam.
Sure.
Now, you're getting information from these websites that look just like a corporate website that you're used to going to, so how can you fight against this?
Well, what I would do, look, you know, my family's on eBay. I like to go on eBay sometimes as well myself. Okay.
And eBay is just an example of one.
It's just, yes, I'm sorry. I don't, not to target any particular group. I'm using eBay by an example. So if I get a fake email that looks like eBay and said there's a problem with your account, your credit card, we weren't able to process, never click through the email. Ever. Okay. If it's a web-based email, don't click through the email. No matter how legitimate it looks, go to the originating website every single time when you log in. Do not, I don't care what it is, don't click in through web-based email at all. Even if you recognize it, always go to the originating site to log in.
Okay.
Okay, that's the first thing.
Okay, now what about spam guards and anti-spyware, things like that that you can get for your computer? People pay big money for this kind of stuff. Okay. Now, how does it actually make a difference? I
mean, the spam guard just might stop that particular email from arriving, okay? And the spyware might prevent, usually what spyware is usually doing is stopping you from opening up attachments where they're going to drop some form of spyware on you, maybe to get your personal information. Often this commercial spyware is really just to get your keystrokes and to find out what you're interested in the internet, so they can send you more spam as it relates to the stuff that you're interested in. Doesn't, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. But I mean, you know, I have an email filter in my email at work, but stuff gets through. I mean, the PayPal scam, I get hit with that PayPal scam. Like I've got, you know, I have a very popular website, so I'm getting probably 300 or 400 spams a day. Every single time I go in there, there's a bank scam, there's a PayPal scam, there's the Nigerian 419 scam where, you know, my great brother, I need you to open up accounts so I can transfer, stuff like that. I get it hit all the time, you know. So, I mean, spam filters are great. You just need to be wary that this particular scam's out there, and you need to be wise about it.
Okay, now shopping online, I had read somewhere where it's more safe to shop online through a secure site than it is to even go into stores sometimes. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm wishy-washy about it. I mean, it's great to go onto websites and to buy things online, okay? but it depends on who is looking after the credit card stuff. Okay, the Visa, the American Express, the MasterCard, that kind of thing. So if the company that is processing the credit card transactions for that company, so let's say, say for example, it's a company want to buy some teddy bears for a kid, and it's called XYZ Teddy Bear Company. When you give your Visa number out, are you giving it to XYZ Teddy Bear Company, or is there an authorized merchant online who is processing their transactions? Okay, your Visa, your American. So if you can somehow go on there and find out who the authorized merchant is on there, then it's safe. A classic authorized merchant would be iBill, for example. A lot of websites that use iBill, and iBill allows you can buy things, with your diner's card through iBill. So if a company is using iBill to process their credit card receipts, then it's clean, it's safe. But, like for example, I have credit card facilities on my website, but I'm not really using any kind of a credit card facility. So if you want to do business with us and we are taking credit card payment from you, that kind of thing, you're emailing or you're faxing your credit card information, which is whatever. But I mean, I think people trust that we're not going to defraud them or whatever. So you're buying online, you just need to remember that when you give that credit card information up, that you could be dealing with a private corporation that now has your data, okay? Or it could be a safe transaction where there's an authorized merchant company processing these transactions. You got to be careful,
Okay, well, I understand that you also should not give personal information, including credit card information, in emails. Now, you said that your company practices, but what makes your company different than those people who don't?
Exactly. I mean, I wouldn't really recommend a client to send us an email with their credit card information. I would probably ask that they fax it, but I just, we don't process enough I mean, a lot of the clients that we're dealing with are banks, insurance companies, trust companies. They're not paying by credit card. Often, we take on what we would call an end user client. They might want to pay by Visa if there's someone who wants an asset investigation for some kind of a judgment that they have or something like that. I might, allow them to send an email, but it's touchy-feely. And you're right, it should be done by fax every time.
Okay.
Unless you're using a secured merchant. Okay,
for those shopping at home, then when they are purchasing online, they should look for sites with a secure merchant. Yeah. That would probably be the best bet, unless they're shopping on your site.
And also, they shouldn't be asking any unusual questions.
Like what? What should be a trigger?
Unusual questions are like if you're filling out a form to buy something and they're asking you your social insurance number and your date of birth. I mean, I don't really see the need for a lot of that to be on there when we're processing a credit card. You know what I mean? So just be wary if they're asking a lot of really, like if they're asking, what's your secret word that you're using if there's a problem with your whatever, and, you need to be just wary. My position is when it comes to anything, when it comes to your personal data, is the second someone has your date of birth and your social insurance number, or in the United States, your social security number, they own you. Okay, you might as well cut your fingerprints off and give them to that person because you've essentially given away the two most important pieces of identification that you can hold are your date of birth and your social insurance number. And don't give it to anybody, if you can help it, that kind of thing. So.
I'm sure a lot of people were not aware that, because these are things that are very easy to actually get. Somebody's birthday, you can just easily look at somebody's social insurance number if it's in their wallet. Not that you go looking for it. Well, I may not, you may not, but some people do. Anyhow, so if somebody was to get their hands on your or mine or anybody's social insurance number and birthday, that can also put them in another category where they can be a victim of identity theft and impersonating, correct?
Okay, yes.
Now, so let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, okay. I guess the best way would be a situation where someone actually has managed to harvest this data from you. They've managed via filling out a spoof email. Maybe they contacted you under some kind of a ruse on the phone saying, you've qualified for this. We're going to need your whatever. Oh, hi, I'm XYZ Bank calling before we discuss our banking details with you. Maybe we have your date of birth and your social insurance number. So
that seems a very, very common and a very easy way to get it done.
So,
just sound a little bit sincere on the phone, say that you're from a reputable organization, and then people would be apt to give that information out.
Right.
Is it that simple?
Over the phone?
Yeah.
I mean, look, I've been contacted by my own bank, all right, my own legitimate bank. And they say, hello, it's XYZ Bank calling me. I speak with Kevin Bousquet. And I say, speaking. He said, well, I'm calling from XYZ Bank. I need to discuss your personal details. Well, may I have the last three numbers of your social insurance number, please? Or may I have your date of birth, And I think relatively banks have good security, but that really bothers me. It drives me nuts. I feel like saying, well, who the heck are you? I'll call you back. You give me your 1-800 number. I'll call you back. I'm not going to give you my date of birth over the phone. So I am.
Do they usually give you that option to call them back?
I've done it. You know.
So this is something that us and the viewers can exercise. If you're not comfortable giving your information out over the phone, when they call you, you can call them
Depends
back.
on the bank, you know.
Okay.
You know, so I guess some banks might have that facility, other banks may not have that facility. You know, I'm just paranoid because of what I see out there about giving anything over the phone where they're asking. Now, sometimes I've been in situations where the banks are trying to get some of your transactional detail. They'll say, okay, could you tell me a purchase that you made last month? And you say, well, yeah, I was at a gas station, blah, blah, blah. And then they'll use that to secure your information so you know that you're speaking with the right, that you're truly speaking with the bank. But I mean, in general, I think this bank security positions, the way the bank does security is very, very good. You see, the banks have two objectives. One is to protect your security, okay, but the other is to give you the best customer service that's possible, that you can possibly do without jeopardizing that security. How do you do that? You know, it's catch-22 situation. You can't do one or the other. So, you know, the more that they lock up information and make it harder for you to go through all these security things, your customer service, you're more inconvenienced because now you're driving and you're like, okay, hang on, I'll pull up my driver's license number, I'll read it off to you, and now I'll pull my social insurance. That's very inconvenient.
It's like airports. It's like airports. People complain about privacy, but at the same time, we really need to ensure that our security really is in check. Now, okay, talking about simple things like using pretexting, which is calling somebody and just getting information over the phone by impersonating someone else. Now, by using methods like this, and getting somebody's birth date and SIN number, what can a fraud artist do with this information?
They have your date of birth and SIN.
Yeah.
They can apply for credit in your name.
Okay.
They can apply for a mortgage in your name. They can apply for a vehicle in your name. They can apply for any form of credit in your name.
Wow.
Depends what it is. I mean, you know, if you go to a bank and you try to apply for a loan in someone's name, you're not going to be able to just get away with just a name, a date of birth, and a social. So they're going to want to see some backing data. You know, they're going to want to see
documents.
Well, a passport, a driver's license, a major credit card, those kind of things. But there are situations where those documents can be manufactured. I mean, that's on the news.
Fake documents.
Sure. It's a lot more easier to do online things over the net, using the data that you have, because you don't have to produce anything, okay? Just producing, you know, I mean, I had a client, he posts his curriculum vitae up there. He's a professional in his business, and he's got his name, he's got his address on there. I have 2 kids, he's trying to tell them about his life personally, I got 2 kids, whatever. He's got all this data, and he's got his wife's name on there. And I said, look, you got to take all that stuff off. You got your date of birth on there, and your curriculum vitae, your resume, so to speak, that you're giving to people is right online. And
it's too much information.
Same with people that have resumes online. I'm really, you know, be very weary because
protect your confidential information.
You know.
Now, how savvy do you think businesses are to actually picking up on this? Because I had an incident where, actually, I had a show yesterday. We were talking about a technology writer was on, and I was telling him I ordered food online for the first time. I put in credit card information. Now, after I had pressed send, they had said to me, the page said to have my credit card ready for when the driver came to drop off the food. He came, but he did not ask for my credit card. And I thought, okay, I thought nothing of it at the time, but when I think about it now in context, really, that's unsafe. Just like what you had said, you could have my credit card information, and then boom.
I mean, the olden days, they would take a folio. You know, they would bring the thing and they would take a folio, just rub the pen over it and take a folio. Now a lot of it's online. I mean, it depends on the company. You know, is there a way to protect yourself from? I don't know. You know, I really don't know how you can. You know, it's the same thing. The more protection you have, the more you're inconvenienced. You know, so there's got to be a fine line, I guess, somewhere along the lines.
Okay, just finishing with business owners now. I would think that business owners would probably get a tougher end on this because there's counterfeit money, there's people demagnetizing credit cards and coming and stealing people's PIN numbers and coming into stores. Now, how do businesses safeguard themselves against this?
Against these devices?
Yeah, that too. Actually, first let's talk about the money and the cards coming in, then we'll talk about the devices.
How do they protect themselves from, I'm sorry?
From people walking in with counterfeit money, people walking in with fake documents and credit cards.
I mean, you know, look, there's traditional things that you can look at with respect to money. You know, the ultralight thing, the blue lights that you can put. I don't know a lot about it, okay? You know, with respect to whether or not, you know, when they swipe a card, is it truly that person? There isn't, you know, there isn't really a lot of protection that I can see with respect to situations of counterfeit, situations of, you know, swiping cards that may not be legitimately that person. There isn't really a lot that businesses can do to protect themselves. But the only thing they can do is make sure that they're insured for it. So if they do experience a loss, they'll be able to collect their losses through their insurance company, you know.
Okay, so now you had mentioned devices. People use credit cards and debit cards all the time.
Yes.
Even at bank machines, and it's so easy apparently to pick up somebody's credit card information and PIN number.
Yes.
How does this happen?
Okay, well, these are devices. They kind of look. They go over top of the slot that your credit card or your debit card would go in, and it's a little ring. And basically, what would happen is they'll put that on a device, and when you scan and you put all your information, this device is electronically recording your debit card number and your PIN number.
Oh,
and they come back and pick that up a little later. There was a case that I had read on the news or somewhere where apparently a McDonald's in Walmart, and that McDonald's, they all had them, and someone had actually planted those devices there. As far as how to protect yourself from that, what I would say, is the best way to protect yourself, maybe during the Christmas season, where you think there's going to be a lot of it, all right, is to use a credit card, for example, that can go no higher than $1,000 or $2,000. I don't know how much the average person spends on Christmas if you have a big family, small family, but let's say, for example, it's a $1,000 limit. So if your credit card number does get out there, or you're doing a lot of internet shopping online, the most you're going to get dinged for if you become a victim of fraud as it relates to credit card fraud, not impersonation, okay? As far as credit card fraud is $1,000. Same if you're going to use an Interact card on the internet or through, as you said, through these devices. It's just use an account that doesn't have a lot of money in it. More than one account. So if you do get scammed by these people, you're not getting scammed with a lot of money.
Well, that sounds like a reactive approach. How would you be more proactive in terms of safeguarding yourself instead of having to do damage control afterwards?
In this particular situation, I don't really. I would say that keeping a low balance for shopping with respect to credit in your bag, I would say that is proactive. I would say a reactive is such a situation where you're running to the police expecting the police are going to help you and catch the guy and they're going to get your money back. That would be an improper kind of reactive. I would say it's somewhat proactive.
Okay, now you had mentioned that people can take out loans just with certain small, little information. Now, how long do you think it will take for someone to find out that this has happened to them?
Almost 90 days. Okay, because what happens is an account starts to go into, just like your own credit card, okay? 30 days, you get another statement. 60 days, you're getting another statement. Around 90 days, regardless of whether it's a credit card product, a loan product, you're probably going to get the phone call.
Okay, so this statement is actually going to go to your address, the victim's address.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. You probably start getting the phone call. I mean, you'll probably start getting the statements. Depends. I mean, what happens is sometimes what they'll do, if someone applies for a mortgage, they've gotten a loan, and they've secured it against a mortgage, and there's a whole area of mortgage fraud that I haven't even touched on yet. But what they'll do is they'll say, look, can you mail the bill from my mortgage statement to my post office box, please, so they don't get it, all right? So what will happen is, they'll run a credit bureau on the legitimate person, and around 90 days, you'll get the phone call, and they'll go, hello, your second mortgage is in arrears. We need you to make a payment, or we're going to, foreclose on that kind of thing, whatever. So, depending on how sophisticated it's done, you could get it right away. You could notice right away that there's a Visa card that you didn't even apply for that's coming to your address. Okay?
So then how difficult is it for a victim to prove that it isn't in fact them with a second mortgage? How do you deal with this after the fact? This is a problem that the insurance title companies deal with every day. I have a business that surrounds this. I do skip tracing. I do a lot of situations where I'm locating missing debtors, okay, for banks and insurance companies, lessors, lessees, landlords, clients, everybody, and I have a little no fine, no fee system. And all of a sudden, for the past 3 years, I've literally been looking for people, and when I get into it and we investigate it, the person doesn't exist. It's a manufactured person. The driver's license number is manufactured. The social insurance belongs to someone. So now I'm saying to my clients, well, we're on a no fine, no fee basis with you, but I got news for you. The person you're chasing, the loan that you're after, it doesn't exist. It's fraudulent, And now now what I'm doing is I'm filing affidavits saying I've done all of these inquiries, whatever. So the bank, depending on who the client is, whether it's a mortgage company or whoever, can make their claim, with the insurance company to say, look, this is a fraud. Okay. And I've also read that scam artists also use the identity of deceased people as well.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, okay.
Without going into too much detail, we only have a few minutes left.
The average gravestone, for example, has a person's full date of birth and a date of death, right?
Yes.
Sometimes they just have a year of death. I can tell you straight up, you go to certain obituary websites, and there's whatever. I don't want to I've got to be careful. I'm probably giving ideas. Probably got criminals writing information down on how to do this, but
well, at the same time, there's people like yourself that know what's going on. So
So you're right. I mean, they're primarily through obits. Sometimes it's right on, you can find this information through any kind of a public record where they usually post the person's full date of birth and the date of death. So, and you have a last known address, not too hard to get that kind of thing. So it's really not too hard to get that information.
Well, keeping in mind that this is an awareness show for all those at home to safeguard themselves against acts of scam.
Well, look.
Rather than giving ideas.
I'll be real direct with you when it comes to the issue of fraud, okay? If people get victimized by this crime, okay, if you think that you're going to go and be able to report this crime and see, that you're going to be able to get your money back, or you're going to be able to see this person get punished and serve whatever, you're going to be disappointed, because chances are they're not going to find the guy. Chances are, even if they do find the person, he's not going to have any assets. So a proper way of protecting yourself from fraud is not an after-the-fact situation, a reacting to a problem, okay? It's taking it from beforehand and doing the safeguards, exactly what you said, okay, is preventing yourself ahead of time so this fraud doesn't happen in the first place. Do not go into anything thinking, well, if this guy scams me, the police will find him, and I'll be able to sue him, I'll be able to collect my money back. It doesn't happen the way,
wow.
And, don't get me wrong, I love the police forces. You're never going to really appreciate the police forces that you have in Canada unless you've been to another country, okay, and seen some really bad police forces. We have the best police forces in the world here. It's just